Corey, coming at you from DangerKatts Central, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 6 of Makers, where I speak with artists who shape and make culture. I've been doing so many of these lately, I forgot what number I was on. I almost said 4, I think, but we are on episode 6. I'd like to introduce this week's guest, musician, producer, and so much more, Lee Christian. Hey, Lee.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you here, man. Now, this is from Lee's official bio, just to give you an idea of what he's doing, and I'm going to let him go into more detail. But Lee Christian was a prominent figure in the Oxford music scene for over 10 years as an artist, producer, remixer, event organizer, radio DJ. Probably best known for fronting the formidable alternative rock band Smilex for over a decade. And among his accomplishments with Smilex, he impressively provided support for punk legends The Damned. He also involves himself in countless diverse musical projects like the Prohibition Smokers Club, BoyWithAToy, Chateaux69. He now lives a semi-hermitic lifestyle in Bath, UK, developing his eclectic musical and artistic influences, and he has his own company, QuickFix Recordings. Lee's style is diverse and impressive, and I was going to let him lay that all out for us in detail. So without further ado, from Bath, UK, Lee Christian.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of stuff, isn't it? It just means I've been doing a lot of stuff for a long time, really. I think anybody who is in music ends up kind of doing a lot of different stuff as a result of that. I don't think when you get into music, I don't think you have any idea how much other stuff you're going to be doing. Like most of it is all the rest of the day, and then there's a little bit of music if you're lucky.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I know. My primary gig for a while has been comic creation, and there's so much going to conventions, answering emails, social media, you know, talking to the artist, talking to the publisher, and like, I'm supposed to be a writer here, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I mean, a lot of, I put together a small comic for Free Comic Book Day a couple of years ago with like a load of different artists and writers. I just kind of paired them up a bit. Like, I was just kind of trying to use my kind of record company savvy of like, there's a good like singer, there's a good guitarist. I'll put them together and see what they kind of do. And in most cases, it came out with pretty good stuff, but it was like a little compendium with the intention of going on, doing everything. Yeah. And we had like a small publisher, and then they had a kind of family thing that happened whereby they had to pull all their money like out of everything. And so like we kind of just couldn't get past doing the first issue in terms of like getting it sustained and everything. So you have my respect for sticking it out and that business. It was like just that little taster it was really fun, and it's a cool thing to have out. I'm really happy that we did it, and I'd like to resume it at some point. Like if there's if you've got any great published friends who are watching this right now, then I got a great little project for you. But and I wrote, like, it's a shame because a lot of it's written as well, like, you know, 10, 12 episodes or whatever and stuff like that. A lot of it isn't drawn though. That's where a lot of it falls down, because apparently it's way easier to get writers than artists, and I was burning through artists. By the time we actually published, I think most of the titles involved were either had ended up being done by a totally different artist who was the original intention, or ended up like, you know, that artist had now left and we were looking for a new one or whatever. It's like pretty, it's very time consuming. I understand. It's like, well, they talk to me as a musician and I'm like got my editor hat on for that, but as a musician I like, I know how long it takes to sculpt it all. Do you know what I mean? Like I really do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but
there's a lot of turnover in comics. It's really hard to sustain, you know, but you know, if you can get one thing out, like if you get anything out, it's just like in music, you know, if you get something out, it's automatically a success. It doesn't matter how much you sell or anything like that. The fact that you finished it and it's available commercially, that's the successful stop, isn't it? Yeah. I was reading a little bit of your Moriarty. I haven't finished it yet because I'm not very good at, I like just reading paper, do you know what I mean? So I'm not very good at scrolling through things, but I really liked it. The writing was really cool. It had, I don't know, just a nice kind of seedy dark side of like old England kind of. I was going to ask you actually whether you, because you had like the old Boar pub or whatever, and I was wondering whether you based it on real bits or whether you just let your imagination create a little like fake. It's set in London Yeah,
primarily.
yeah. I visited London a few times, and my wife and I were there on our honeymoon a while back. It was 20 years ago, but and then we revisited last year for the first time since.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that pub was there was a pub we stayed on the first time we were there. We stayed on High Street in Kensington, and there was a pub there that was like 500 years old, and I couldn't quite remember the name of it, so I just made up a name. But that's supposed to be like the pub that we
Right.
visited
That
a lot.
pub. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
She always remembers the correct name. I can never remember the correct name. But it's a 500-year-old pub. I thought that was pretty impressive. I think it was the first place we went after we arrived. We went over there. But,
well, I mean, if you don't go to a pub pretty soon within getting into England, then you probably won't want to stay for very long anyway, will you?
It's such a wonderful visit, such a wonderful city. I love it. I haven't had a chance to see any other parts of England, but
right,
yeah. But
well, if you're back, you should. And if I'm still in Bath, then come and I'll show you all the ruins of Roman.
That's really neat. Yeah,
there's some pretty cool stuff. Yeah,
I mean,
it's really pretty.
Yeah,
it's a pretty city. It's just quite it's quite posh and quite expensive, really, which is. I kind of keep moving. Like I used to live in Oxford, and my Oxford friends visit me and go, "God, it's posh here, isn't it?"
It's a lot more upper class than Oxford, Bath is a bit.
It's tough to say, really. I think there's always areas that are and that aren't in the place or whatever. And I can only ever afford to. I'm lucky if I'm not living in the poorest area of any place that I live usually. So yeah. Especially post Spotify.
Oh goodness, yeah. We live in the Valley in Los Angeles. That's where a lot of the creatives live. All the executives live over the hill.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine.
In houses. We all live in apartments over here, and they all live in houses. We have a coin shortage going on right now. Because of the quarantine and the pandemic and all. And so all of us artists in the Valley are washing our laundry in the shower or what. At least I think.
Yeah.
So we need the quarters. We need quarters for the laundry.
Yeah. Exactly.
People have their own washing machines that live in actual houses. Have it so good right now. They don't know.
Quarters. You're lucky. For musicians, quarters is like, what? A quarter? What happened? Like, did I have a hit?
You got 100 plays on Spotify.
$8 for 1,000 streams on Spotify. So once you divide that between the label, artist, anything else that's involved, and the all the distributor and everything's taken their cut, it's like, okay,
yeah.
Keep it rolling.
And it is. I know, like, in the comics business, the same. Like, all the overhead comes out of, comes out of the sales, and
then you're like,
you get like nothing in return, really. But yeah, and I've actually done some. I was a Sun-Times actor when I was a little younger, and I still get little residual checks here and there.
Nice.
I've gotten the 1 penny check that the Seinfeld,
the legendary.
the Seinfeld 1 cent check. I was like, the bank was right across the street. It had this 1 penny check in my hand. I'm like, I could go cash this right now, but I feel like I'd be burning off this penny across the street. I'm gonna lose money walking to the bank to cash this,
Yeah, of course. So, no, that's the kind of thing you just frame.
Yeah. Glory days.
I've always got this.
Yeah, I know. You can fall back on it. This is my bearer bond or whatever.
Hey, you never know. One day it might be worth a lot.
It could. Who knows? When we're all rich and famous, but making history. But, so I got a question I'd like to ask you. This is kind of like what I ask a lot of folks at the beginning of the show. What sort of art do you make, and what do you think is your role in shaping culture at large?
Okay. First part, what kind of art do I make? I guess predominantly leans towards outsider, rebel, kind of, I'm not really trying to do I'm trying to be as good as some stuff that's gone before, but I'm not really trying to do anything that's been done before so much as try and find something new. So like a lot of my sounds that I choose are not like, I guess, traditionally as palatable, and do you know what I mean? And like some of my arrangement choices and some of my just just choices in general, really. Just like, oh no, I'd like to test. Like part of like what Smilex was quite traditional by by like most standards in terms of rock bands and stuff like that. We had some cool arrangements and cool little twists and stuff like that, but it was like pretty verse chorus versey kind of stuff. But like in that, the testing was in like the live show and maybe the dynamics and things like that, like to kind of get something out of people is always more important to me than to kind of please them necessarily. Like it's more like I want a reaction, and certainly better than any kind of flatline or whatever. If they can just go out going like, yeah, I don't care, then I've totally messed up. Like so in the Smilex gigs I'd be like in people's crotches with the microphone in their crotch, screaming into their crotch, and like, do you know what I mean, smashing glasses over my head and like climbing up things, and like, yeah, I mean, it's literally but like
you're okay, or you don't seem
well, I might have some brain damage, you never know. Like might have just unlocked some previous blocks, do you know what I mean? And like so I have like an even broader thinking. My partner the other day asked if I'd ever been tested for autism, and I didn't really know how to react. But yeah, it's quite interesting. So yeah, but I haven't. But I was never tested for ADHD until recently, and then I found out that I was like that kind of bits of that and bits of some other stuff, and that back in when I was young, you were just a nuisance. You weren't like ADHD. You're just like, will that kid just shut up and sit down or something like that? You know what I mean? I mean, I guess I just trying to make. I mean, in terms of broader terms, I'm involved with lots of stuff that's more palatable than my own kind of pursuits, which I do as much to please myself as to please a potential audience. I do want people to like it, otherwise I wouldn't put it out or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I don't want them to like it at the cost of me liking it. Do you know what I mean? And I know some artists that have things that they're like, I don't really care about that. Like, it's popular with everybody, but it's not my thing. Do you know what I mean? So that's, I guess, part of the business that I'm not really doing very well. But yeah, that's primarily like try and be honest, I guess. Try and make something that communicates something that maybe someone else hasn't said, at least in that way. Or, like, I think the only thing you can really do to be original is bring like your like self into it, because everything else is learned. Like, everything else is in some way, even if it's unconscious, you've learned those patterns for like, this is what a good film is. This is what a good comic book is. This is what, and you might plot your thing out in nine block pages just because you loved Watchmen. Do you know what I mean? And Jeff Johns, not talking to anyone in particular, but like if so like it's all learned patterns and that, verse, chorus, verse. So go louder for the chorus, or here comes the guitar solo, here's the middle eight, etc., etc. It's all learned patterns, and all you can really do to try and bring anything that isn't already out there is just whatever is that weird thing that's in yourself that nobody else would necessarily do. And a lot of my favorite people did that, like Prince is so much like that. Tricky, or I always come back to, is like someone who's just like, wow, he just isn't like anybody else. It's all just like totally him. Like, there's bits that are totally out of time or out of like rhythm or sync or whatever, and it's like, do you know what I mean? It's just so uniquely, no one else would actually do that. I think Beck definitely had a period of being like that. I don't really listen to him so much anymore, but like I certainly feel like the first like handful of albums, like that Bowie, obviously Bowie, however you want to do it, is, I mean, like each thing he's kind of trying something different and trying, kind of to smash things together that he likes that maybe haven't been done like that. So I just kind of take that kind of inspiration from the people that I like, and I try and do the same thing with my music. How effective, or certainly how popular that is, I think there was a time at the end of the 90s where I would have then been like the next logical step, but then everything went a different way. If that makes sense. Like it kind of just went into kind of, we had all that time right at the very end of the century where we started making a lot of lists about everything that was good about like the previous time. And then moving forward, everybody went, really, we should mine that for like everything everybody likes. And we've just had nostalgia and kind of, you know, things that we've kind of already heard repackaged a bit. And the only things that do seem to be maybe moving in a new direction seem like they're kind of more based on what certainly in, I can't say about comics, you could probably say more, but certainly in film and music, I would say they've moved more towards what's effective for the studio to turn around for the right price, like so that they can make money from that product. And do you know what I mean? That's all guided everything. And so I don't think there's as much, and also I think as the audience, our culture has been like, maybe because life has got harder or something like that, or maybe it's not harder. Ask my granddad, he was in a war. Do you know what I mean? But like, maybe it's just become more boring. And so we've kind of become very in need of like comfort. And from our art, we've stopped asking for new and testing, and we started asking for secure and a safe bet, somewhere I can spend my money and know it's not going to be weird or wasted or whatever. And I think back in our day, maybe also there wasn't as much access to everything, so we would more take risks on, you know, we go down the video store and you'd get one thing that you wanted, maybe one thing you maybe wanted, and one thing that's just a total like gone, and that looks like it might be interesting. Do you know what I mean? And so the way you took in things was different. Musically, you know, you're a lot more at the mercy of all your friends and their tastes and kind of things. Like like I remember during the grunge days, we all like Nirvana, say, but then one of us would be the one who's got all the, not just the Pearl Jam, but all the Mother Love Bone and all the, do you know what I mean? And then there's another guy who's, he's the Pixies guy who's also got the Breeders stuff, and another guy. And so between it all, I was like more maybe Stone Temple Pilots or Red Hot Chili Peppers and some things like that. And so we'd all end up listening to everybody's tastes and things like that. And so it became a bit more of a mixed culture. And then obviously you've got that other melting pot kind of nature. Whereas I think, you know, maybe I feel like we're definitely coming around to another wave like that. I think we'll see like this, like the 90s was a more commercial version of the 60s. This will be a more commercial version of the 90s, but it'll still be bearable, hopefully. So, you know, that's something. And, you know, melting pot influences, different cultures, all that kind of thing. I think I just kind of took all my stuff and then made that. And that would have made sense had culture gone a certain way, but it didn't. So I'm a kind of fringe artist, if you know what I mean. So, which is, it's all right. It's like being a samurai or a cobbler, I figure. Do you know what I mean? A cobbler looks out in the street and he sees everybody wearing shoes and he goes, I know how to make that from scratch, and yet I struggle to make a living. Do you know what I mean? And a samurai is like, who gives a toss about a samurai anymore? But in his day, he was the badass. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like a bit of a cross between the two, if you know what I mean. And so, yeah, in terms of how I can impact culture, I don't think I can in a massive way. I'd love to. But I feel like I want to find my little place and do that. And through a lot of what we're doing with the record label, I'm really trying to do that. So that's more in a functional way, like with everything I've learned, and like help new artists and kind of, you know, and get them kind of exposure that they wouldn't necessarily get. You trawl out across like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, there's tons of bands out there, and they've got like, you know, some following or hardly any following or quite a lot following, and they all are in kind of the same boat at the moment. And I kind of feel like I just want to use some inventive ways of doing things and some very community orientated ways of doing things to kind of pull everything together in a bit of a little bit, just a little pocket in a scene. And it can be on the internet, because it doesn't have to be in like Seattle or, you know, New York or Oxford or Liverpool, Manchester. You know, like usually they spring up out of cities, and that's kind of in a way irrelevant and dated. And maybe half the problem with the music industry is it is irrelevant and dated. Like it works completely out of sync with the way the culture now works. It's all got these long delays before releases. You know, to get like, if you want to get on playlists and in editorial, you have to do it like 8 weeks minimum in advance, which means that you can't comment on the culture before the big guy has. And it kind of, it puts a stranglehold on independent artists, seeing the amount of money we can make. is, you know, it's incredible that major labels have stakes in Spotify. So if Spotify does well, they do well. But meanwhile, indie artists are on Spotify getting completely shafted. But meanwhile, major labels are making money off of us somehow, which is incredible. So the way that, you know, so I just want to kind of reach out to the people who are a bit bored of how everything is and want to see some musicians play some music. And this isn't restrained to, like, you know, guitars or some kind of old school theory. It's just that nature of making and doing. Do you know what I mean? There's a huge element of that isn't in popular culture right now. A lot of it's factory process. You've got it's more like making a comic. Music is now, like, they've got the writer from over there. He might even get overwritten by someone. You've got the producer from over there, and they might have someone else kind of remake their thing, especially, you know, the writer will almost certainly have their thing remade. And, you know, there's just a whole, is 40 people to make a one-person product, and, you know, and then they go out and pretend to play live, and, you know, in these massive halls of thousands of people charging hundreds of dollars that no one can afford. And it's all just a bit bloated and out of date and a bit uncool, really. And I'm pretty sure that all the kids, like, that I met in the comic shop or, you know, see at gigs and stuff like that, they all agree as well. It's all just bloated and dated, and it's time to kind of reinvest in kind of some of the older school values of, like, what it takes to make art. Also, you have to pay for it, you know, sorry guys, but, you know, Spotify is just convenient. It's not good, it's just convenient. If you put on a Spotify playlist and you're listening to Jeff Buckley and Joni Mitchell, it'll put Ed Sheeran in your face because they've got their corporate deals so that Ed Sheeran gets put in your face. It won't pull up some awesome singer-songwriter that you haven't ever heard of from some other place, which is the entire point of that kind of a playlist or whatever. So the whole thing's got too sewn up, you know. So we need to make something that's, like, exists underneath that and doesn't need that. It doesn't, like, we'll still play the game, our stuff will be out on streaming, but it's not like the primary goal. It becomes about servicing your proper audience and the people who really genuinely care about what you're doing, not the people who are just popping in and having a quick listen. We love them, great, come join the fun, do you know what I mean? But that's our secondary consideration, I guess. Do you know what I mean now? So yeah, it's just a bit tired of it, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many weird rules as well. Like, I had artwork refused from iTunes, which held up the release and everything, which didn't hold up the release. I've got a good distributor and they sorted it out. So, but it could have potentially held up the release. And I'm always getting artwork things, and they're weird things. Like, you're not allowed other text that's not the title of your record or your artist name on the record. And it's like, what do you mean? So, like, Prince Controversy, where he's famously against the board with all the headlines, so you couldn't do that now, especially if you're an underground artist. Do you know what I mean? So, and then the borders were something about the borders being uneven or not right or something like that, and so someone had to change it and sort it out. So it's like, shut up. Do you know what I mean? Shut up. Just let me put out my art the way that I want to put out my art. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of like, I just want to do things and not worry about them so much. Do you know, they're not really concerned about us, so why bother about them so much?
Yeah, it's good to you know, if you get into a niche like that, you can make a change and make an effective you know, spot in culture by doing something that not a lot of other people are doing. Like, you know, as far as, like, just myself working in comics, that in itself is pretty niche. You know, everybody goes and sees the movies based on them, but the actual books themselves is it's a very niche thing. But the fact that, you know, that myself and a lot of my friends are doing it, we're among, like, 1% of population that have actually created a comic and had it distributed internationally, you know. And so you're doing that in music. You're occupying a space that not very many people have, you know, a non-conventional space, and you're also working with other artists. And
I mean, we're starting a singles club next year, which will be like it'll be a subscriber thing, and then each month, on the first of the month, you'll get, like, a brand new artist that you will have potentially never have heard of, and certainly you wouldn't necessarily come across especially through the mainstream channels. And each month you'll get that, and so we're going to include, like, a dozen artists straight away off the back of that. Like, you know, in that year. And then we've got our other releases, which was currently chatting with like some amazing bands that you wouldn't get out there in the, you know, got this really, I don't want to say anything anyway, because then if it doesn't happen, because we haven't put ink on things, but you know, we've got some really cool, like just different things that you just wouldn't get now because of the way that the whole thing's structured, and people go, oh no, well, that can't get airplay, or that can't get, do you know what I mean? So, and then, you know, visually we're like really interested in all the visual arts and like tying it all together, like making short films and comic stuff and visual comic stuff that ties in with music. And you know, we're like really interested in pushing the form and kind of trying to move with the times and being responsive to what's going on. Like I try and release like records that kind of like suit what's actually going on at the time, because I feel like that's, you know, in the kind of John Lennon, he said something, I never know this quote and I wish I should go back and learn it sometime, but it's like, he said something like music should be kind of written on the Monday and put out on like the Friday so that people can, I mean, dance to it on the weekend or whatever, do you know what I mean? So it's got that immediacy and it comments on the culture, and certainly pop music and stuff like that. So I just want to move more towards those kind of ideas. One of the cool things that we did with Kalindo was I did a remix of one of his songs, Sugar, and I sent it to him and he loved it and played a load of extra like cool, wicked guitar. And I've got like some of it already kept aside that I need to do a new mix with, but like I instantly just did this one mix with him just playing this awesome soloing like all over the whole thing. And it's really immediate because like that was the night before, because I'm really bad with mixes, I don't finish things until the deadline's there, and I sent it to him like, and he played on it, and then I did a new version stripping away some stuff and keeping what suited, you know, his new version or whatever. And then that was out that morning.
Yeah.
So he recorded it at like, what, in the afternoon, I guess his afternoon, my evening or whatever. And then I mixed it in the night and it was out in the morning. So for the immediacy of like an artist communicating with their audience that, and being spontaneous and all that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing that, you know, I think Prince would have like loved that kind of freedom. Do you know what I mean? So, so I just want to kind of move around in those kind of circles, and hopefully the people who are really interested in those ideas and ethics and all that kind of stuff will drift towards us. And, you know, we'll be doing everything in our, you know, within our capabilities to reach them. Do you know what I mean? So, so hopefully they'll just come along for the ride and realize that it's actually a lot more fun. I'm wearing like this, hat at the moment, Ruction. They're like a hardcore metal label in London, and they exist. They've got huge, strong, loyal, dedicated fan base, like who are so loyal that they not only buy tons of merchandise and like proper CDs and everything. They go and see their bands, and they like still are really active in crowds. Well, obviously, I don't know how COVID's going to affect them and everything, but you know, and it's a fairly aggressive, fairly rebellious, like unlistenable to a lot of people in the mainstream kind of form of music that has a lot to say about the politics going on in the country and everything. And it's really inspiring, because you think, well, they've got their little pocket, and in their little pocket, there's nothing better. It's kind of, you can't really mess with it, because it is, and the bands are really good and they're supported, so they get to be even better, and they get to go out and play in different countries and stuff like that. So, you know, it really, it's inspiring to kind of, you know, so I'm just kind of taking those mentalities. I grew up on factory records, Sub Pop, you know, just classic, you know, things like punk and, you know, all these kind of things, culture movements that kind of work in terms of just doing what you can with what you've got and making sure it's really cool and enticing for people, I guess, through how good it is. Like that, really, music's like good when you listen to it, and it was good. Do you know what I mean? So we're just going to try and do that, and, you know, kind of keep it visually entertaining. And like we have a few things, like on Mondays we get our fan base to tell us what they're listening to, and we make a playlist out of it so that everybody can listen to what everybody's listening to. And it's a tiny thing, but it's quite nice. And obviously the bands that are involved all post, and they post their friends' bands and the bands that they've been listening to and stuff like that. So it all becomes this big community orientated thing. We started an open mic last Sunday where it's just an hour of dropping into people around the country, like around the world.
Oh, nice.
And you just get a song from someone, and the standard was really cool and really high, and Kalindo popped in and did something, so that's like a bonus. Do you know what I mean? So and so it's just like this really, and it's really nice to have him involved because he's such a cool guy that he does get involved, and he just sees what you're actually trying to do with it, like not like, oh well, you know, is this cool enough for me or whatever, do you know what I mean? Which is so it's really nice. So yeah, it means that people can watch like all these acts that they wouldn't have necessarily caught whilst waiting for the Kalindo bit. Do you know what I mean? So that's so it's really cool. Like I just so yeah, I hope to just get something cool going, and it's an invitation to everybody around the world. Like we're looking at bands from like literally all over the world, not all English speaking and stuff like that. Like it's a really inclusive. I do find it weird when I hear a band that's speaking like a Latin language or Russian or something like that, and the music is amazing and the melodic thing is so strong, and you're still getting a feeling of something from it. And I find it weird that that isn't something that more people explore in the mainstream and stuff like that. And so I think it's another area that we're kind of not really quite unifying as much as we say we are, because you still got to kind of like parler the anglais, if you know what I mean. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can, you know, I think people have caught on to things like Sigaros, you know.
Yeah,
like,
there's little bits, there's bits and bobs. I saw Sigaros at one of the greatest gigs ever. It was in Oxford. It was a homecoming gig for Radiohead, on the back of not Kid A, the next one, Amnesiac, and it was at the top Radiohead. Underneath them, Supergrass, which is obviously perfect Oxford. Sorry, not under them, Supergrass. Under them, Beck doing an acoustic set, like Mutations era Beck, which was awesome. Did like my favorite, Nobody's Fault But My Own, which is just amazing. And Supergrass underneath them, which was perfect Oxford fare. And then underneath them was Humphrey Lyttelton and his jazz orchestra. Sigur Rós was actually underneath them, and then Humphrey Lyttelton below them. And then some of my friends in the band called the Rock of Travolta, who are instrumental post-rock, also on, kicked off the whole day. So yeah, it's just like an amazing day. And Sigur Rós were kind of one of the fillings of the sandwich, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Like they were a really nice piece of tomato in a burger or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Nice. I found a band called, I'm not going to say it right. I think they're a Danish band called Efterklang, and
right.
Cool too.
I mean, there's examples. Rammstein are huge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely.
There's examples and everything. I just think it's weird that it's not a bit more commonplace. If you know what I mean. If something makes you feel something, then that's the primary concern. I listen to a lot of instrumental music and jazz and stuff like that. So like. Instead you're like listening to a trumpet doing the notes or whatever. So why can't that just be a cool voice that's not in a language you understand? So I didn't want to make a massive deal out of that. It's just a little part of what we're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is all through QuickFix.
Primarily, yeah. I mean, the film company Aversion Films is kind of loosely linked with it. The Theodicy Comics will be slightly linked with it when the opportunity arises. And yeah, I just using loads of other people have their own teams, and we're really happy to kind of just reach out, and people want to come and be part of our team. Amazing. If people want to stay doing their thing but want to do some stuff with us and collaborate, amazing too. We're just kind of out there getting as much cool audio visual stuff in people's faces, really, to kind of just to make up for the deficit in the mainstream, really. Do you know what I mean? So that's great. I mean, this is really taken in the spirit of what this show is, you know. Yeah, I think that's why I really wanted to talk to you. I thought, well, that question is like exactly my question. Do you know? So, like, I think I don't know how long we've talked, but that was like literally off the first question, wasn't it? So
pretty much, yeah. But that's okay. Yeah. You actually covered a bunch of other questions I had, so it's all good. One thing that I saw interesting in your bio, I saw you did some remixing for Shed 7, and that's like a band. Like I like that album Golding for Gold. That title track is such a fun.
Do you know what? That might be the moment that I was less into them. Like remembering it from like, because I was like quite an indie kid. Like when the whole Britpop thing took off, I was like into a lot of bands, and that really cool movement because it was all like bands you could go and see in a local venue, and you know, and you could go and get your stuff signed by them, and they brought out like really cool 7-inches which were different colors and stuff like that. And so it was really good for the culture. Do you know what I mean? It was like, and it was, again, it just made you get in a band yourself. You know, that was like the key thing, and made it really cool. And yeah, so Shed 7, I was quite into them, like especially the first album, Change Giver. I really liked, like a load of.
Oh. Okay.
It's all my guitars.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's all right. They've landed relatively okay.
Okay, all right, good.
It's all right. None of them are worth that much. One of them's worth like more than I'd like to have get fixed. But yeah, I've got like, well, I've got 5 electrics, 3 acoustics,
cool.
1 bass guitar. I really want to get a different bass guitar though. I want to get, like, because I've been playing on this old Encore thing for a long time. I work it so that it's all my own sound. You know, I heard this thing where Bernard Edwards, like he had his own way of playing it, so he's got his own like little thing, and he knows by ear when it's his sound, so he can pick up any bass and do that, or he could. Sorry, God rest his soul, but yeah, so I kind of go by that and kid myself that it's all right. Plus, I'm an engineer, so I can tweak it. But yeah, so they're all stacked around. So if I move too much, something. Yeah. It's a domino effect. But yeah, so what was I don't know what I was saying before the guitars.
Said Shed 7 we were talking about.
Yes, Shed 7. So yes, I was really into Change Giver and a load of that stuff. Dolphin, Round Your House. I remember buying the singles and knowing the B-sides and that. I can't remember what's from what now. Ocean Pie. Yeah, and then they had that standalone single which wasn't on an album called Where Have You Been Tonight, which is really good. And then the next album was the one with Going for Gold and Getting Better. And I have a soft spot for Getting Better. I bought that on 7-inch, definitely. I think I have Going for Gold on 7-inch.
Yeah.
But I think that's when I started. It's like when all of them started, whenever they bring out the big chord ballad or big chord anthem / ballad, like that's when I'd kind of like, that would be the true mark of who the amazing ones are, and so Suede would write these intricate, like crazy semi-gothic ballads about excess and squalor and whatever else, and do you know what I mean? And then Shed 7 would have Going for Gold, and you'd be like, oh right, okay. Or Radiohead would come out with like Street Spirit or something like that, and you're like, and it just kind of seemed like that seemed to be where you'd know which the ones that were really the ones that you'd be on board with for a long time, which is really harsh about Shed 7, isn't it? But they didn't pick my remix for the EP, so screw them. But I like my remix. It's all right. Yeah, I was really pleased with it. But yeah, that's the stems were really nice. I love working with professional stems. They're so much easier. Galindo stuff was so nice to work with. Such lovely guitar sounds, tones and stuff. You don't have to do too much to it. Anything you do is like, honestly, it's such a definite creative choice. Whereas a lot of the time I find when I'm working with my own stuff, it's part creative choice and part like getting it to be a better sound than I could get from my cheap shit. Do you know what I mean? So you're allowed to swear, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right then. Yeah.
PG-13.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to shut down a notification. Oh, I didn't catch it.
That's all right.
I wanted to catch it in time.
Yeah. So, so you had a good stint with Smilex. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Just talk about the style and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you grew up on 90s rock and with a little bit of like kind of indie like and alt bands and stuff like that, and I guess some classic rock. It's weird because we appeal to a lot of different people, but not a mass of people, if that makes sense. But we'll people will come up and say we remind them of the Sex Pistols, or others would say Led Zeppelin, and surely those two things are contradictory, right? But then we get the Stooges a lot, and I feel like that maybe makes a bit more sense out of it. And but then also we'd get from other people, we'd get like a T-Rex vibe or something like that, and then other people would be like, oh, like Stone Temple Pilots, Rage Against the Machine, Smashing Pumpkins, Tool, Pixies. like it's just like a lexicon of all your favorite bands. So I'm really chuffed with like all of the stuff, and being honest, the records still sound really good. I just listened to our second album the other day, and it was the first time I'd listened to it, and I heard the best of it rather than hearing what it might have been or what I didn't do like I thought it would be, or do you know what I mean? It's the first time I had like that kind of like, shit, that just does actually do what we wanted it to do. And I couldn't really, I guess, get to grips with the fact that to put that in context, our first record, 7, is like straight punches in the face, and it's really big produced, and it's really slamming, and it's really hook led, and it's not too testing in arrangement ways and stuff like that. It's way more punk and rock and classic rock and things like that. And then in the same way as, say, Nevermind and In Utero are kind of flip sides of a thing, for Le Petit Mort, we really tried to make something that sounded like the band you would come and see. So it's like really tight and intimate at points, and dry, and lacking in overdubs, and lacking in, like, a lot of it was recorded, you know, with everybody playing at the take, or if it was fixed up, it was to do so in a very like one take fashion, and kind of like try and keep the integrity of what people see when they came and saw us. And so I think for a while I was just like, it's too bare, it's too sparse, it's too kind of naked and uncomfortable. And you know, I don't know, we like had certain songs mixed by certain people because we wanted it to retain a brutality and an indie kind of sound to it, and then we had other bits done by other people because we wanted them to, I don't know, have a best of both worlds with a kind of bouncy rock thing and then a polished epic thing or something like that. So, and then Patchwork quilted it together, so then when listening to it also felt a lot more less like a cohesive thing than the first album. So a lot of these things kind of really made me, in a strange way, uncomfortable with it for quite a while. But actually, for the first time, I was just like, yeah, actually we did it. That was actually what we were trying to do, and it does do it, and I'm really happy with it. And it maybe just aged right. It's like
I've listened to a lot of
10, 12 years
as well. It's very timeless. Yeah.
Well, thanks. I'm really happy when I work in the comic shop, and I'd end up talking about bands, and I'd be like, check out my band, and they'd be like, yeah, sure, Grandad, and like, and then they come back and go, I checked out, they're wicked, like, and your lyrics are like up to, they fit the things now. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really sorry, I wish they didn't. Do you know, I wish things had got like better, and you know, you didn't have, if anything, they've only come more true in a strange way. Like I remember getting reviews for certainly stuff on the second album, like there's a song called What Is It You Actually Do Again, and it's just about kind of about vapid celebrities. And I remember getting some like flack for like, are they really worth a pot shot? Like, isn't there worse things going on in the world? And I do sing about some of those anyway, so they could just listen to a different song if they want that. But like, but also I felt like, no, this is a thing that's, and it's only become more so, and become so that it's replaced real culture in a way. So I feel like it was a valid point, and only become more valid as time has gone on. So there's a Nostradamus quality to some of my stuff, like where it kind of comes, like people think I'm a bit of a moaner, or a bit of a bit too angry, or I'm never quite the right amount of whatever for like what the time is. Yeah. If I'm bitter, then I'm like, I'm too bitter for other people. And maybe that bitterness kind of comes round over time, that people reach the bitterness that I was already at. Or if I'm angry, then they reach the anger that I was already at. Maybe I can just see behind a couple of the things and a bit quicker, like, those bastards are at it again, kind of thing. And like, but other people don't catch on for a little while, and they're like, they are, aren't they? And you know, everything's just slightly out of sync. So you know, I'm really happy, like the Smilex still have like a young audience that listen to them, and like listen to us, and and well, it's easy to remove yourself, because like it
absolutely is.
Also, I'm just the singer, lyricist, part songwriter, like part arranger, like some production ideas. Yeah, like I'm a part of the thing, but like everybody else is also that part of the thing. Like everybody's got like maybe not the lyrical input, but like a lot of the other input, do you know what I mean? Of like harmony ideas or rhythmical ideas and everything. And it takes a lot of people to make an album, just like it takes a lot of people to make a movie or something like, or comic book or whatever.
Yeah.
So I, when I say, you know, Seven still sounds wicked and I'm still really proud of it, and it's well worth checking out. It's not like some massive head. I do have an ego. I'm a lead singer. Do you know what I mean? But it goes with the territory. But it's also like, we all did this work and it came out and it still seems good, which is such a hard thing to do, to kind of make something that has any kind of relevance or longevity, you know, so that new audience can find it and not be like, yeah, whatever, I can tell it's very of its time. Do you know what I mean? Then it's, then that's really cool. So yes, I'm really proud of Smilex's work. We will do some more stuff. There's like, hopefully some new recordings coming out next year. So like, just got to finish off some stuff, and I don't like to just brush it off, like rush it off or do it. We used to make those records the proper way that bands make records. We go and camp out somewhere and devote ourselves to it, and then, you know, so I don't really want to do it like by piecemeal almost. But now that we're in a weird kind of COVID-y situation, it kind of makes sense to work like that. Yeah. But yeah, so there is some, we've been working, we did actually start just before it. So maybe again, Nostradamus style, we actually just all kind of thought we'd like to make some music, whether or not we're in the same room. And we've played together for so many years and we're like familial, like me and Tom are Pat and Liv's best men. So our bassist and drummer got married, and the guitarist and singer and the other best friend of the drummer, who's also a drummer, who would probably, if he ever couldn't do it, would probably just get him, like, just because he's familial again. Do you know what I mean? Bands kind of get like that, I guess, you know. And even when Jen, our first bassist, left, it was Liv, who was Pat's missus, that stepped in, and we'd been playing with her bands for years, and they were the band that actually QuickFix started to sign, which was a three-piece teenage girl kind of grunge band, and that, and playing stuff for, whoa, this is amazing, everybody should hear it. And they weren't getting the kind of notice that they should have, so we just thought, hey, let's do it, I guess. And so that's the same kind of principle that I'm still trying to kind of go off now, really, is the same kind of, it's funny because when I formed Smilex, it wasn't supposed to be like that. I was in the band scene in Oxford, did a kind of funk rock band for a while, and then wanted to go to Manchester to learn about drum and bass and hip hop and, you know, just stuff that wasn't going on in the indie scene of Oxford. And then when I came back, I was going to do this, like, you know, like almost like a, I guess, a garbage type thing where there's like technology and, or Nine Inch Nails, or do you know what I mean? Like the kind of fusion of all the musics, kind of more like what my solo music is basically, but maybe more formulated, like with Smilex kind of formulas and kind of structures and stuff, but with the kind of, I don't know, anyway, I digress. So then when I came back to Oxford, I went to see, and they caught up, everybody was using like little bits of technology and everything, and when you'd go to the gig, that would be the bit that would always break down, so they'd always have to play this song, like, and kind of hopefully the other bit will kick in at some point or whatever, you know. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a meat and potatoes rock band, classic four-piece. I want a good guitarist, and we started off as a two guitarists kind of lineup, and then eventually Stu went off to London and didn't kind of come back or whatever, and much love, Stu, if you're watching, we're still in touch to this day, and we just didn't kind of replace him, and Tom just stepped into both roles, and millions of others as well, doing vocals and all sorts of stuff. So it just kind of became that, let's have that kind of classic dynamic, drums, bass, guitar, lead singer, frontman, kind of standalone kind of thing, and do that really well. And yeah, so we caught a lot of attention really quick because of all the chaos and everything. So I can't remember how I got onto that, but yeah, the point being, it was trying to boil it down to kind of what's essential, and I wanted to kind of, so I made like a list of like the bands that I felt like were vital and that got me interested into rock music as a kid and got me really hyped up about it and that. And so it was kind of supposed to be based on kind of those bands. So quite a tight list at first, and then later on, Le Petit Moore is like, it kind of widens out a lot. Do you know what I mean? We kind of explore a lot more stuff. But certainly 7 is the result of like boiling down the best of rock into one band. At least that's the scientific, that was the kind of, you know, idea or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. It's nice you have all that recording out there and all that legacy. And you're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased. Like, you look at bands like, I love like Nirvana, because you can trace it right back to like in the living room practice, where it's all a bit, you know, the Kurt's still singing facing the wall and stuff like that. And maybe he would still have liked to in the later days, really. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's like, it's really cool to have all that, so you can see where it starts and that it does start. I think that's the other problem, is like a lot of culture now, it's like the finished product, ta-da! And you don't really get that growth, and you don't get that attachment to seeing something and growing with it and all that kind of thing. You know, Prince got from, you know, like 1978 For You to Purple Rain, in that's 6 albums before he became what everybody perceives him totally as. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, now that the industry isn't really set up to support that, you know, to allow someone to experiment and grow and eventually nail it with what's really them, but is palatable for everybody else as well. Do you know what I mean? Not just palatable, but groundbreaking and pioneering, which I think is part of the problem. A lot of what's aimed for is just palatable.
Right. Well, now you got a lot of, you have so many projects that we've discussed here. So would you be able to just give us a rundown where we can find your stuff online?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want my music, it's the best place where it's all is leechristian.bandcamp.com. That's like, I use that as my, that's just where everything goes musically. There's instrumentals and remix albums and all sorts of bits. So there's even an interactive game where you are DJ and you choose tracks for like, to help someone DJ a set, and like we kind of made that in a week, like after thinking I want an interactive game, and then there's a soundtrack to kind of all of that, and yeah, there's just tons of different stuff in loads of different styles. Each album is like kind of, I pick a certain palette, like one's kind of blues and beats kind of fused together, one's kind of more industrial goth kind of trip hop fused together, one's like a lot more electro, like political songs or socio-political songs with dance beats and things like that. And like, it's always kind of a new manifesto and new themes and stuff like that. So hopefully, you know, if you don't like one, you can dot across to another. You can stream me on Lee Christian. You have to search for ages, like maybe pick one of my songs, The Boys or The Joker or something easy like that, because then it'll pop up. Otherwise you get like all sorts of rubbish like Post Malone and stuff before you get me, because this is a weird thing. Like, why is it on these streaming services that it doesn't work like Google?
Yeah.
If you type in the name of the person you want, it should just be straight there. You're not asking for anything else. It shouldn't have something else with someone else's totally different name. And I'm not talking one, I'm talking like 3, 4, 5, 10 down. And you're finally like, oh, great. So under artist, I'm the only person with my name, but I'm 10 down.
That's weird.
So there's something really stacked and unfair about the whole system anyway. So yeah, so stream me if you like, but if you do, just leave it on repeat, please.
Right, yes.
but yeah, like I'd rather just listen to it on Bandcamp, and I didn't get paid, but Bandcamp knew that their stuff was being streamed, being honest, you know. Plus all my stuff, lots of my stuff is pay what you want. So just pay what you want. I know it's hard times, do you know what I mean? So you can't pay anything. I'm just happy you wanted the files. These days, that's the win, isn't it? Someone wanted the file on their phone or laptop. Right. Amazing. Like, I'm honored.
Yes.
In this, constantly clearing off space. Do you know what I mean? That would be a bonus enough. That means you actually gave a toss, right? So, and QuickFix Recordings, we are on all social media. I'm on most social media as well. I'm most active probably on Instagram. But I give Twitter a little go when it's not being too mean or super political, I guess. I try not to get into fights.
Yeah.
The most attention I ever had on my Facebook was when I said something mildly not massively wonderful about the Royals, and I just got like just total pummeling, and I just went, wow, that is literally the most attention I'll ever get. And it's totally a load of people who will pay no attention to my music or anything else I'm doing. So what a pointless format, do you know what I mean? Like platform. So I don't really spend a lot of time on there, but you can catch up with everything I'm doing through the QuickFix thing. They're really good on there. And you know, I do all my Instagram stuff gets posted there anyway, but I just don't get much feedback either. So it just becomes like, okay, well, I'll let you know what I'm doing, but if you're not interested, I don't need to spend a lot of time on there. And you know, social media takes up tons of your life anyway as an artist. So it's good to kind of focus on the ones that you feel like you've got a rapport going and everything. So I have a little bit on Twitter, but I just find Twitter itself a bit hard sometimes. And then Instagram seems to be so far working out all right for me. We seem to have a good relationship going. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I mean, YouTube just full of loads of content, like whether it's review shows or all sorts of just weird and wonderful bits and short films and videos. And I always make loads of videos for all my stuff musically, because I understand that people like to see stuff whilst they listen and stuff like that. So yeah, QuickFix Recordings is everywhere. So I guess that's the main thing. Theodicy Comics, if you're feeling there's a free comic on there, so you might as well. That's THEODICY, because people always think it's The Odyssey, but I like how it kind of sounds a bit like it. But yeah, and Aversion Films, we've got a great lockdown show on there, which has like 10 episodes of tons of stuff you can do at home, how to keep fit, things you can cook, just like stuff you can read, stuff you can watch, like just like and entertainment of musicians and all sorts of great interviews. Vernon Reid from Living Colour, Clindo, the Dust Junkies, Skunk Nancy, a guy who does mastering for like everybody, really interesting guy. Guy was the bassist for Sinead O'Connor during like her kind of big explosion kind of time and everything. And yeah, just like, yeah, really cool stuff. So yeah, just like, I'll keep you entertained. You might not like all of it, but you'll find some bits that you like.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you're all over the place.
Try my best.
One more thing.
One day I'll be omnipotent. This won't be of just a screen background anymore. This will actually be me, like over the world, just feeding out entertainment to everybody.
Cloud. Yes. Yeah. All right. So one more thing to close out today.
I kid, by the way. I am playing along.
Yes, I know. I think the audience is cool, understands that. But I want to give you a challenge. Since you're a maker, I want to challenge you in the next few days. You have a chance to make a unique, special, creative moment. I'd love for you to share it with me. It could be a photograph, a microburst of audio or video. Just if you happen upon anything neat and new that you want to share, send it over and I'll post it for my audience as a special bonus maker's moment.
Sure. How many people have actually done this? Because I've noticed that you've asked.
I've got 2. And actually,
okay, wicked. That's a good result so far. Because getting musicians to remember and do anything is like really hard. So
yeah, I got Jim Wilson from Daniel Lanois' band. His show went up today as we're talking, actually, and then in a few days from now, he did a special bonus maker's moment for me where he played.
I will absolutely do that. Can we talk about Daniel Lanois for a second? Are you a big U2 fan?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I'm like, it's the least cool thing about me, but I like really do like U2, like a load. Like I try and play it down sometimes to try and be cooler and not be such granddad.
I don't know why it's not cool, but
you remember, this is really geeky now, but you on their mailing list / fan club, not in the fan club, but on the main. Did you watch that recent, they aired the gig from All That You Can't Leave Behind? They aired that live on the street. I missed
that, but I did see that. I saw that in concert back in 2001 in Tampa, Florida.
I never went to that tour, so I was really pleased to see that. One of my first ever gigs, apart from Prince in Main Road, Manchester, which was also Zoo TV. That was one of my first ever. So I was like, so my whole thing for multimedia and everything, it's like, so the seeds are sown, you know, really early on. In fact, it's weird because the new stuff that I've just put out, which goes with my instrumental EP that themed on roughly on the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, but also weirdly tied to celebrity deaths or musician deaths that impacted me hugely during my own kind of weird mental health issues. So the pieces of media that are with it are very Zoo TV intro-y in a strange way.
Yeah.
They could definitely be like something from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but yeah, I saw them, and then I went with my brothers, which was so good to be able to kind of see the same gig. We didn't end up in the same seats, but we were like together before and then together afterwards. And then we managed to group up for like the last bit of the encore or whatever. So, but also with my, with Grace, who I've turned into a U2 fan via that podcast, Are You Talking U2 to Me? Which is really good, with Scott Alkerman and Adam Scott, which you should definitely check out. It's really funny. And so I got her into U2, like, and she hated them. And so, and she's now a proper fan. And
good for Grace.
And yeah, that show was the off the back of the Songs of Innocence, which was a really good album, which everybody really shat on them for giving them for free. And I was really chuffed. I was so happy, because not only was it really, was it free, and it'd been after like albums where I kind of always felt like half of it I think is really great, and then the other half I'm kind of like, yeah. Like All That You Can't Leave Behind starts off, first half is amazing, and then it's like, okay, for the second half. And then What's Name is kind of off and on, How to Dismantle Atomic Bomb. And then the next one is actually probably their most consistent listen for me, because it's experimental, but doesn't have really many of the standout tracks where you go, oh yeah, classic, or whatever. So by that time I was quite like, well, I buy all your albums whenever they come out just through loyalty, so it's really nice that you've given it to me free. But then it was actually really good. Yeah. So much so I ended up going and buying it on CD at some point later for the collection anyway, because it's like one of their best albums. I put it in top 5 of their albums. Yeah. So we went to that tour, and it was their best tour in ages, with like massive screen stuff going. It's the closest to the Zoo TV kind of thing. And so I was really chuffed that Grace, as a filmmaker, and you know, everything, got to see all of that stuff, and then my brothers got to see a tour where it was like real great strong new material, and also a great strong visual kind of package. So yeah, but yeah, so how is it knowing Daniel Lanois? That must be amazing.
Oh, well, I know him very casually. We've talked a few times here and there, but he's
good enough.
Yeah, he's local to here in LA. And at the beginning of this year, I mean, I'd gone to see him. I had gone to see him play a million times, but over the last decade. But then, starting at the end of 2018, he was forming this new Heavy Sun band, and he had just had a big hit with the Red Dead Redemption 2 soundtrack that he had done. Right. So he started playing a lot, and so I got to know Jim, his bassist, and I actually got to go to a party at Daniel's place. It started 2019, and hear them play in Daniel's studio. That was pretty special. And then
that's some other amazing stuff, like any stuff that he's done with Eno, obviously, and then that he's on the Scott Weiland solo album 12 Bar Blues, which is one of my favorite albums of all. One of my favorite, like, a guy goes solo and makes an album. Like, it's definitely one of the best examples of that, being creative and like melodically strong and structurally strong, but also having a broad palette. Yeah, so that record, and I'm sure a lot of that is like due to kind of Lanois kind of, you know, allowing for that breadth and also bringing kind of musicality to it, where Scott's a bit more of a, I guess, a punk sensibility writer, being primarily a singer or whatever. So yeah, like, that's one of my favorite. I put that on so often, and it's one of my favorite records ever. So yeah. Oh, you should. If you don't know it, it's amazing. 12 Bar Blues, it's called. The cover is it looks like John Coltrane's Blue Train, but with Scott Weiland, but in the same colors, like the Atlantic, classic Atlantic cover. But it's a really exotic, diverse, like, really rewarding record. Yeah.
Cool.
Like, such a talent, such a loss. In fact, the red horse on my new EP is dedicated to Scott Weiland. The white horse is dedicated to David Bowie. The black horse is dedicated to Bernie Worrell, the keyboardist from Parliament Funkadelic, who created all the synth bass lines. That he was the first ever person to use a synth as a bass. So he created modern music, essentially. Do you know what I mean? So and also, and then the final, the pale horse, is dedicated to Prince, which was obviously the most cataclysmic of passings. So they're kind of like, I refashioned the Four Horsemen as signifiers of the end times, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so it's deaths of prominent figures that lead you to kind of go, okay, this is all going to crumble from now on, right? So yeah, hopefully not. Let's hope not. That was during some dark times for me. So, you know, but yeah, so yeah, you should definitely check out Scott Wade and 12 Bar Blues. It's amazing.
Okay, cool.
Wicked.
Yeah.
What's your favorite U2 album then?
You know, I like Joshua Tree and Unforgettable Fire. You know, that's probably where I center everything. But you know, I like a bit of everything they do. You know, and Achtung Baby came out when I was in high school. You know, and
that sold me.
That was huge.
I knew and liked them a bit, but that was where they suddenly moved into this. I don't know, the music just was everything. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like just this, I don't know, it just became everything. And being a Prince fan, I guess there was a bit more of a natural kind of like, oh, this has some groove things to it and some interesting production, and do you know what I mean? Tied in a lot with, I mean, I grew up on like great stuff through my parents, like Roxy Music and stuff like that anyway. So I guess the Eno was strong in me already. So wicked.
Cool, man.
But yeah, I started interviewing you a bit, but it's rare that I get to talk about things that I like, and you kind of mentioned that, and I figured, oh, U2 fan, I should mind this.
For sure.
You can always edit it.
No, it's fine. No,
this is a bonus feature.
It's all out the way it is. I did a lot of coverage for Daniel and his band on my site. If you wanted to dig around,
check it out,
because like they were doing public rehearsal at the start of this year for a tour that ended up having to be canceled because of the pandemic. But weekly at this club called Zebulon in Atwater Village, not far, about 15 minutes from where I live.
Wicked.
Every Tuesday night, they would do like a 2 to 3 hour set. And
awesome.
I was going every week.
Of course.
And there's
why not?
A tiny little room, you know, you had to get there really early and just kind of cram in, and you were stuck right there for the night. It was wonderful. And, you know, I got to talk to Daniel a little bit more. And so like, I actually interviewed Daniel a couple of times, and that was great. And I've interviewed Jim a couple of times as well. And and they're a cool bunch. This Heavy Sun, they just released their new single. It's called Under a Heavy Sun. So I'd recommend checking that out.
I'll check it out for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they've been working toward for the last year and a half or so. And now it's starting to start hitting release. So I'd recommend that. But yeah, check out my site. I've got several.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll dive deep. I've been checking out obviously the interviews, but I just, as you could tell, I have quite a lot of stuff like going on all the time. So it's like, it's really pleasurable when I do get a chance to like sit and just take in someone else's thing. Like I had just the greatest day the other day, just reading the Three Jokers. Just, it was a nice sunny day. There was no noise anywhere, which is really unusual. Yeah. And so I just sat there quietly and just dived into this Batman comic, and it's like so joyous. There was sun pouring in the window. I was just lying on my sofa. Do you know what I mean? It's just the greatest thing. And then I've just got this Sign of the Times box set, and listening to that on, like, set up my stereo, because I haven't had a good stereo system set up for a while. And I just set it up so that I could do it justice. And I was just sitting there, like, I was trying to read through the liner notes and stuff like that, and I couldn't. I was just like, whoa, like, just drawn, my attention was just permanently drawn to just, what's that going on in the snare drum? What's that going on? What's this little weird, you know what I mean? And just like totally rapt attention. So yeah, it's really nice when I can just purely focus, which is why I love my baths, because I can just lie there and listen to an album, like just really just properly listen to it and soak it up, literally. So yeah.
Well, I'm gonna wrap it up for today, but awesome. we've gotten a lot of great. This has been a really nice makers conversation. So I just thank you a lot, Lee, for coming on.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's really nice to reach out and make contacts, and hopefully we'll end up doing something together at some point, like with the label or something. I was chatting actually with Andy, saying you guys should do something where you write the story and he soundtracks it so that the listeners have and then I was thinking maybe even we could do something visual with it, whereby it's like a motion comic or something like that with the soundtrack and stuff. So yeah, if you ever have any ideas in that would work for that kind of format, do reach out for sure.
Yeah, sounds cool, man. No, I'm interested. So let's keep thinking about that. So just be in touch, and we'll generate some stuff here for the audience to see, man. That'll be really
wicked, awesome. And I'll send you over a maker's moment ever so soon.
Wonderful. All right,
wicked.
Man.
Awesome. It'll probably be in the next 5 minutes now. I'm joking. Cool, man. Wicked. Awesome. You take care of yourself. Keep safe out there as well. And to all your viewers and any of my viewers, I guess, like, do keep safe. And I am paying attention. I really appreciate every bit of, every like, every watch, every bit of time that you're giving my stuff. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Wicked.
Absolutely.
Take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye now.